Done. Okay, so guys, today I have the absolute honor and pleasure of welcoming someone who has had a very unique journey to get to where he is today and has so much knowledge and wisdom to share from his experience. From being an up and coming wide receiver playing on a legendary USC college football roster, coached by Pete Carroll and with teammates among the likes of Carson, Troy Polamalu, and others, to then achieving his dream of playing in the NFL before, quote unquote, losing it all, so to speak, and finding himself in a place where he was challenged to dig deep within and reinvent himself. And reinvent himself he did, as he'll talk about, as along with a stint on the hit show Survivor, Grant found his true calling, which was yoga. And now finds himself as a father, a husband, first and foremost, an accomplished yoga and meditation teacher. And from what I've seen of Grant, following him on social media and whatnot, he's someone who just brings an authentic, high vibration energy wherever he goes. By the way, he's releasing a ton of valuable content via his Instagram. But later on the show, he'll dig into how you connect with Grant, how you can get some of those resources he's putting out there. But without further ado, welcome to the show, Grant Mattos.
What an introduction. Thank you so much. As you were going through it, I was remembering all the experiences.
Oh, just a roller coaster.
Just a roller coaster. And it's really interesting, time flies, that saying, right? It really does, because God, it's almost, my first year in the NFL was 2003. It's 2020. And it's like, I can remember things like, I'm sure we all can, just like it was yesterday. And I think what's interesting is hindsight being 2020. I always look back and I go like, I can see the perfect path now. And if I just trusted a little more along the way of like, everything's going to be okay. Maybe my experience would have been different, but I don't know. But for inviting me on here, this is it's an honor myself just to be here and be able to share and collaborate and to bounce ideas and techniques and tools off each other, because we like, you've had your experience in life, right? And it's no different than what I've experienced, other than the fact that yes, the situation and circumstances may have been different, but there's still the pain, the stress, the anxiety, all the stuff that we all go through, whatever the occupation or whatever the job. So I love conversations like this, because it just opens up a collaborative experience where we can learn from one another. And I think that's so important in a world that's predominantly competitive, right? And even the football aspect of it, I look back now and I go like, would you play again? And I go, yeah, there are parts of it that I love, but the competitive aspect of it too, I more enjoyed playing with people that were very much like, hey, this is not a real competition. We're just having fun and collaborating. So yes, that being a long-winded way of saying it's an honor to be here, and I really appreciate you. And I'm excited to dive into all of this.
Well, man, what a pleasure. Absolutely. And I love what you just said there about, I feel like in today's society, especially, it's all about different. How can I stand out? How, can I be the best at this? How can I go farther at this? And really, we're all facing the same problems when it comes down to it, right? We're not all so different.
No, it's so true. Like, and it's, I don't know if it's human nature or if it's conditioning where we're, you've got to do better than the guy. There's always competition. Like the guy, you have to outdo this woman. You have to outdo them in order to be the one to stand out. When it's like, no, how much can we learn? It's such a narrow-minded focus. And I understand this for myself, because it took such a narrow-minded focus to actually make that dream, which ended up being my father's dream, which I accomplished for him, to make it to the NFL. It was so narrow-minded that when it ended, it was like there's this extreme nothingness, identity-wise, occupation-wise, your whole self wrapped up into one occupation, that when it comes to an end, you're like, what is next? I mean, and the thing that Jim Carrey says, which resonates so well, is like, I wish everyone had, I'm going to mess up the quote, but I wish everyone had a chance to be rich so they could understand that it wasn't, that happiness doesn't live there, right? It's great to have money. Don't get me wrong. great to have abundance in all areas of your life. But when it becomes the one thing that is all encompassing, we miss out on so much. You know what I mean?
That awesome. Yeah. And I think I think you got the quote right on. It was like, I wish everyone could be rich and famous so they could find out that's
Yeah.
not what it's all about.
Right.
Either way.
Yeah.
All right, man, let's jump right into it. So
Okay.
first question I have for you, I guess, why don't we just start with you giving us a brief run through of your journey to get where you are today, as it is certainly not the most typical of paths. And with that, if you can also comment on when you discovered and began incorporating mindfulness into your life and what that kind of journey looked like.
That's a great one. Okay, so where to start? We'll start at the beginning. I'll briefly skim over. My father, he left when I was about 8 years old, and we split time between my mom and my dad's place. And the one thing I knew how to get his attention, right? I really wanted him in my life. He loved football. And my older brother, he was the prodigy athlete. He was going to be like, hey, he's got all my father's attention, his time. And my dad's attempting to teach him football. So I was always right underneath, attempting to, hey, look at me. Hey, look at me. I can play as well. My older brother never had any desire to play football, right? Again, he was like, I actually like playing guitar. I love music. And my dad's like, no, football. And then he's like, no, I love music. And so my older brother fell out of that, that position of, you're going to be the next football player. And I slid right in. And so from 8 years old on, the goal was, okay, at a subconscious level, I just want to spend time with my dad. On the surface level, it's, let's play football. Let's go play catch. Let's do this. And so that evolved. I mean, we're talking over a decade of skills improving. I wasn't the best. I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't always the biggest. I wasn't always I wasn't the most athletic all the time or at all times, but I didn't stop. Like the drive, which I didn't know at the time, the drive was make this goal of playing in the NFL a reality. I get to spend all this time and have quality time with my father. Now that got shoved down underneath. No, this is my dream. My actual dream of making it to the NFL, and I have purpose. I now have emotional connection to this occupation that I'm going to be. So from 8 years old on, what's really interesting, I was practicing what I essentially do now without knowing it. The visualization, the affirmation, the everyday thinking about, like, before I even stepped on a field at a high level like USC or in the NFL, already in my mind, like millions of times rehearsed, right? And then that became the all-encompassing thing. And I got to USC. At the end of it, I was injured, got a chance to play with some really great people that you mentioned earlier, like Troy and Carson, and we all lived in this big house together. It was like 5 of us. It was amazing. It was amazing. Just like 5. It was me, Troy Polamalu, Carson Palmer, Matt Castle, Justin Fargas, and there was a couple other guys who also went on to play in the NFL. But I got injured, and I got the last joy, the real true joy of playing football was at the junior college level. It was still pure. There was no equipment being given, there was no, you were still buying your own cleats. So it was all pure self-driven motivation. You get to USC, this big university. It's a business. You realize, oh shit, it's actually a business. People like me when I perform. They don't like me when I'm terrible, right? And so long and short, I get injured. I get lost in the shuffle, and I'm questioning now. My last year there, I'm questioning what I've been doing my whole life. That was the first time that I actually was questioning my direction, my purpose, and how the hell did I even get here? How did I get here? Do I want to keep doing this? It was towards the end of the season. I said, okay, well, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe this dream should come to an end here. And then something inside said, listen, you've come this far. You guys are going to have a big pro day where all the NFL scouts come to watch and you do workouts. Just give that a go. And if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, great. Wash your hands of it, and then we'll figure out what's next. And I was always really good at doing those, 40-yard dash, all the drills. I could do those, no problem. Did them well. there was every team in the NFL there. There was one coach, Marty Schottenheimer. He came up to me and we just started chatting. Like he was one of my favorite coaches of all time to play for and with. He just had this ability. He was a very emotional guy. He would cry a lot in meetings, but he had this ability to just cut through. And like that moment on the practice field at USC, it was me and it was him, and the whole world, everything else disappeared. He said, "I can't promise you anything, but I'd like for you to come and give this a go. Try to make this roster." And so I did. I did what I always do. I just, from the bottom up, just worked really hard, and I kept, my eye on the prize of, I shut everything out. Meanwhile, when a lot of rookies come in, especially the ones that are drafted really early, they come in with this, for all intents and purposes, you're a big fish in a small pond. That's college, right? And then you get into the league or the NFL, and you've got guys that have been playing for 20 years, almost as long as you've been alive. And so there's this really big jump of like, hey, check your ego at the door, because these older guys are going to tell you how to go. And it's the ones, I remember a rookie wide receiver that was with me who didn't make it. He didn't last because in his mind, he was already relaxing. He's like, I remember one day he goes, "Isn't that great? We already made it." I'm like, "Dude, we haven't even got to training camp yet."
He was satisfied.
He was satisfied. And I listen, like I said, I wasn't the greatest. My one asset that I had that always kept me was my hands. I had it, and I think still have an ability to just hand-eye coordination is really good. I can catch the out of reach ball. So that kept me in the conversation constantly, and it ended up winning me the job. And so I bounced around from team to team. I made the dream happen, right? But here's the interesting thing about having a dream is when you only plan for just to achieve that goal and there's nothing else after that, you get there and you're like, well, it's a little late to start up a new dream of like, okay, it's going to be like, Hall of Fame, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was left there going like this, yes, I made it. And then, holy shit, what's next, right? What's next? And so that's what I bounced around constantly. A lot of inner demons started coming up of like my ability to remember. Like I believed by the end of my 5 years bouncing around, I believed I was not an intelligent guy. I had convinced myself that I wasn't able to memorize phone book sized playbooks, and that meant I was stupid. And that was a big one, a big belief that I had to overcome post Tennessee being my ultimately last team that I signed contracts with. And then Oakland, they invited me to come. I had been bartending for like 6 months. After Tennessee, I'd called it quits, and I've been I've been bartending in Los Angeles because I'm like, well, I need a way to make money. And my friend's like, I got a job. Have you bartended before? I said, no. And he goes, can you pretend that you bartended? Yes, absolutely. So I did. And my former agent calls me during a shift one day and he says, hey, the Oakland Raiders want to bring you in for a workout. I'm like, dude, I haven't worked out in 6 months. He's like, well, can you run still? And I'm like, sure. I mean, it's 6 months.
Yeah.
Hadn't lifted a weight, hadn't done the things that I normally do.
Still had your hands though, right?
Still had the hands. And so I go and I do, the workout well enough. And they say, okay, 2 weeks, come back to training camp. And I remember sitting in that Oakland Raiders practice facility locker room. God, I just sat there and I said, I can't do this anymore. Like my hip was killing me. I had to consume so many, by the end of it, I was consuming so many pain pills just to get through practices. And it just wasn't an appealing lifestyle. And again, the question kept coming up, let's start a new chapter. Come on, there's more. This was a great journey. Let's start something new. And so right there, I felt pretty good about the fact that I got to choose when I ended this chapter, right? I got to choose and say, hey, this is it. I'm calling the shots that I'm done. And I was originally excited about the process of starting a new chapter and something new. Cut to, 2 weeks later, it's pure panic mode, right? Because now I can't say that I'm an NFL guy anymore. That's not my occupation. I'm bartending at a place in Los Angeles where athletes actually come in and sit down at the bar that I'm now tending. Like, I'll never forget it. Vince Young, the ESPY Awards were in the hotel that I was bartending at. And like the entire NFL came and stayed at the hotel.
Man, that
And
had to
this
be
is
tough.
fresh. Oh,
Yeah.
dude, I hid down in the wine storage room.
Yeah.
And my friend who got me the job kept coming up to me. He was a server. His name was Eugene. Eugene kept saying, "Hey, you got people at the bar. Hey, you got people at the bar." I'm like, "Dude, I can't go up there."
Right.
And he goes, "I think there's some football players up there." I'm like, "Can you take it?" He's like, "I can't. I got too many tables." So I walk up.
Right.
And I come out, and there's Vince Young sitting at the thing. Now, that wasn't so much. That alone would have been the dagger to the heart. But I go up thinking he would remember me because we played together for, I don't know, almost 6 or 7 months. We knew each other by name, but I go up to him out of context. We shake hands, and I realize as I'm half hugging him, giving him a pat on the back, he has no clue.
Oh, man.
No clue who I am at all. And the ego in me was just like, just heart ripped in half. And now I'm serving this guy. And I think by the end of it, he's definitely going to remember me. So I say goodbye. We shake hands. We do the whole thing. And he hands me $100 bill. And I have this urge to want to tell him, "Hey, dude, just like 6 months ago, we were playing together. Don't you remember me? And nothing. And it was at that point I disappeared. I left that job. I didn't quit. I just left. And a woman I was dating at the time lived in Las Vegas, and I disappeared. I drove my car that day out to Vegas and moved in with her. And I knew Vegas was a place I could go to disappear. And if I didn't ever want to be found again, I could do that there. And so I did that for like 2 years. I cut everybody off out of my life. I literally dragged across the bottom drugs, alcohol.
Right.
I was now bar backing at the Spearmint Rhino Gentlemen's Club that I used to visit and party in while playing still. And so there was this internal civil war of like, I shouldn't be doing this. I should be up. There was always this level, this hierarchy, right? Of like, you should be doing this, but you're way down here.
Right.
And I in those 2 years, I didn't learn to love myself. I learned to absolutely hate myself, right? And I was just like, what a waste of a life. I'm 26 and life is over. I didn't have the tools and the programs to say, okay, new chapter, what inspires me? I guess it was a mourning in a lot of ways, a mourning of that person. It wasn't even the occupation. It was just that person.
Right.
Because there was this void inside, and that's the best way I literally felt empty. I felt as if life ended at that moment. That's just the way it is. Based on my parents' relationship too, I thought the relationship I was in was normal. Like, right. The dysfunction of the relationship is normal. People that love each other, this is what you just do. And it was that same friend that got me the job at the bartending job in Los Angeles who called me one day. It was I had just been on like a 2-day bender, and he called me at like 7 a.m. randomly. And I'd just been kicked out of the place I was staying in Vegas. I didn't have anywhere to go, and I had my car, which should have been repoed, but they didn't know I was in Las Vegas, so they couldn't find the car. So I was like, I'll just be a street person. I'll live in my car. I don't care. Yeah. Literally, now thinking about it now, I'm like, wow, that mindset is a really dark place that I know I won't ever go back to. But my friend Eugene called me and said, he said, "What are you doing?" And I just spilt everything. Like I was like, this is the situation. He's like, "Come back to LA. You stay on my floor until you get back on your feet." And I said, "That sounds really great, but I don't have any money." And he says, "Let me wire you some money, gas, get over here." And
awesome.
I said, "Great. That sounds amazing." I go down to reach for my wallet. Somewhere in the 2-day bender, the wallet gone.
Lost the wallet.
Lost the wallet. And he says, "Where was the last place you were?" And I said, "The Wynn Hotel parking lot." And I'm on like zero gas. I'm running on fumes. And I go back. I drive back to the Wynn. And I remember at one point in the night, just laying in the middle of the parking lot, in the middle of the road, just I don't know why, but in a full spread, like fallen angel type thing. And somewhere in my mind, it said, "You should go check there because it probably fell out." Not there, but I go to the lost and found. Long and short, she goes down 20 minutes, comes back up, whoosh, flips me my wallet. And that was the journey of like, fill the tank, back to LA. And the second I roll in, he's just full of love. Like, dude, I don't know what you've been through, but I can
Mm-hmm.
understand. I energetically feel. He was a
Mm-hmm.
psychology major, and he was just like, I understand. He just hugged me. It was full of love. And he said,
Wow.
before we even did anything else, we walked right up the street around the corner from his place. And I started working or I got a front desk job at Equinox in West Hollywood. And that was the place where I found yoga. That was the place where I found meditation. That was the place where I found my wife.
Wow.
And he nursed me literally back to health. There was a good 3-month period where he literally like picked me up, and because psychologically I was all twisted, and for those 3 months I built up my confidence again. Slowly I built up, and I found yoga, and that was like, boom, we're coming face to face with all your fears and all your insecurities, all your stuff, and you're either going to face it again or you're going to run. And it was really tempting to go run because that was familiar. And I was very used to it. And that was the beginning steps of the mindfulness, of being very mindful about how I thought, being very mindful of how I felt every day, being very mindful of my actions on a daily basis. Whereas before, I knew my routine. Football was very easy. Followed it. It's almost like the military in a sense. You follow this very specific routine. You get broken down to get built back up. And I knew that world very well, still do. But I wanted to get to know this other person that wasn't the football player, right? And this was the starting path to that person. And there was some setbacks and moving forward, and 2 steps forward to 4 steps back. But it's the consistency of, I did that 2 years by myself. And the moment that I said to myself, I remember this very clearly. The moment I was like, because I wanted a family, I wanted a partner, I wanted to share my life with another person. The moment I truly was okay with the idea that, hey, I may be by myself the rest of my life, and that's okay,
right?
Because I love myself enough now to know that codependence. I don't need another person in my life to make me whole. I'm whole for the first time. I feel like in my life, I feel whole. And the next day is when my wife walked into my life.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So, and that was a crossroads too. Hey, continue down the path you've been on, which is great. But I said to myself, there's something really powerful about the idea that, I think it's a quote from the Bible, as one man, what is it? As iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another, right? And that being said, she was able to she saw me in a way, from a perspective that I'd never seen myself before, and was like, have you thought about this?
Wow.
Because this is what I see. I don't know if you're experiencing this. She did it in such a loving way I'd never experienced before, that it really just, it took me and lifted me up to a vibrational level of, I don't know if I would have gotten there myself. And even if I did, it would have taken, 5 times the amount of time. And she's so amazing in so many different ways. Even still, 10 years in, we're constantly now teaching each other, constantly still communicating effectively with one another. And, there's amazing times, there's challenging times. And I think the illusion today for relationship wise is that there's a constant state of, it's constantly going to be like those first few months. And the realization that, which I disliked doing a lot at the beginning, actually communicating, keeping the lines open of, hey, listen, in a very loving way, this is how I feel. I don't know if this is how this was meant, or whatever the case may be, but staying present.
Which is really hard, really, really hard.
Really hard to do, right? So what most people, and what I used to do, I was known for, is I at the drop of a hat, leave. If it gets hard, I'm out. I'm out. And that goes back to the football mentality mindset of like, I have the football to fall back on. That's my forever partner. So everybody comes second after this. And that it was the football, the NFL, everything ended up being, kind of like an energy vampire. Take, little bit give back, like,
Right.
hey, great job, and take. And I found myself mirroring that in relationships. I would,
Mm.
I needed to be validated and loved so much that any sort of love or affection shown, I would just
Mm.
smother it. I would just
Mm.
smother it, because that's what I was ultimately, because remember in the beginning, that's all I wanted was just to
Right.
be
Right.
around my dad. And
Yeah.
so I had to untangle through meditation, through yoga, through all that. I had to untangle that. And after my wife, after we got married, I said, I really want to go down this path of teaching yoga. And that's when it started about 11 years ago. And really diving in, because it had given back so much to me, the practice and the turning inwards.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be able to help people who might be in a similar place of like, dude, who say to themselves, I have no
Right.
tools. I have no, I just, my lack mentality can
Limiting
be,
beliefs. Yeah.
yes, can be so hard when you're by yourself to pull yourself out of.
Mm.
And I want to be like my friend Eugene, who said, hey, I see something in you. I see you're struggling, and I know that you are a much shinier person than this. Come on. And it's evolved into that, and it's evolved into letting people know that, hey, you actually are in control of your thoughts and your emotions daily. And here are some simple things you can do to reclaim your life again, or reawaken, in a sense, to like every single day. Yeah, it may not be perfect, but I know myself, and I know I have control over my thoughts. And I know when I spiral in a negative form, this is what I can do to counter it. And, it's amazing, because it just keeps getting, the depth of it just keeps going. The roots keep getting bigger or deeper. And the branches just keep getting bigger. Like it's an amazing thing. I don't think it ever ends.
Right.
Yeah. So that wasn't really a quick.
that was awesome, man. That was, I was like, at certain points, should I stop him? No, this is beautiful. He's just going through the whole journey.
I'm sorry if that took too long, but
no. A few points from that description of your journey. So, one thing that really stood out to me was you brought up that once the dream died, you were out of the NFL, which had been your narrow laser-like focus to that point.
Yeah.
You said a piece of you felt like it had died, and you had to mourn that, and that was maybe part of you dragging along the bottom. And I find that so interesting, Grant. I don't remember where I heard this, so apologies if I'm stealing this from somewhere, but like the very famous soccer football player, however you want to say it, Pele, said the exact same thing after he retired from the sport. It was like a piece of him had died, and he went through a grieving process, a mourning process, the same type of experience that you just described. So very interesting.
I think a lot of athletes go through it, if not, I mean, not even athletes. This is, the thing is, any occupation that you've said to yourself, the belief is, this is what I'm supposed to do because either my parents or society or some influence told me this is what I'm supposed to do. And then I get there and I wonder why I'm not happy. I should be happy. And I can't figure it out. And I think a lot of people go through that. And I think, like you said beautifully, I think the dragging along the bottom is part of the process. It has to be, because otherwise it's either, okay, I'm going to keep dragging along the bottom like this, or I'm going to be like, I'm tired. You get to a point where you go, I'm tired of feeling this way. There has to be more to life than this. And the really terrifying place that I knew I never wanted to stay at, but I was really close, and Las Vegas was just prime for it, was I'm not motivated enough to make any changes, and I'm not motivated enough, or I'm comfortable just being where I am, right? Just dragging along.
Just
like
apathy.
Apathy. And that terrified me, because I'm like, if that happens, what does the rest of my life look like? like if I'm 98 and sitting in a rocking chair looking back at my life, what did I do? Did I waste my life? And that was a real fear. I mean, like I used to have these conversations with myself on my breaks from the Spearmint Rhino Gentlemen's Club, sitting in the back alleyway. I picked up a smoking habit. I was smoking in the alleyway, sitting in a curb next to dump trucks or dumpsters, having these conversations with myself. How did I go from a year ago walking onto a Tennessee professional football field to this?
Wow.
I couldn't wrap my mind around how this happened. Maybe I should make a comeback, whatever the hell a comeback was, because I wasn't well known, you know? And that was, that I can look back now and say that needed to happen. But gosh, was it terrifying in the moment, because you don't know in those moments. And like some people that may be listening right now, you don't know if you're going to make it out of this tragedy, right? But the one thing that you mentioned in the beginning, I think, if I'm recalling correctly, is this idea of having some sort of faith. And I'm not talking, it could be religious, it could be spiritual, it could be whatever, but the faith being this idea that I don't know how, but I'm going to come out of this okay.
Right.
And some people go, well, that's magical thinking. And I go, well, that's great. It's either that route, or I continue to say, I'm garbage. I'm garbage. I'm garbage. I'm garbage. I had to. And so one thing that allowed me to make it to the NFL was I didn't know how. I just knew I was going to. And to actually believe that in your marrow, like inside of you so deeply that no one can touch you, no negative comment can come in and permeate that shell of, this is what I'm doing, and I don't care anything outside of me that says anything different. This is what I'm doing. It happened consistently throughout the journey to the NFL, with even teachers in high school going like, yeah, but what's your backup plan? There is no backup plan. Right? This is happening. But now I try to take that, and instead of it being so narrow, opening it up to abundance in all areas of life.
Still having that faith, but just broadening the scope.
Right. And then now getting into the deeper metaphysics of, okay, how does energy actually work? If my thoughts are actual real forces, and I mean like actual forces that can move stuff, and you may have people be like, yeah. But literally, the energy going from my brain out and vibrating out into the world, from my heart out into the world, you wonder why people's lives change so quickly in like a year's time. They believe it from inside. I spent years attempting to move stuff around outside myself to say, okay, if I change the way this looks to me with my eyes, then I'm going to feel better. Or if I bring in more stuff, I'll know I've made it, right? The material aspect of things, which is great. Have all the things, but know that your happiness, your worth, your value isn't dependent on more. I'm not trying to fill anything anymore. Do you know what I mean? And that was a big realization to come to, because now I'm instead of this, I'm now able to give because I took the time, and some may call it selfish, but it's because I took the time to go inwards to really say, I'm now overflowing with this. And I want people to experience it too.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's...
Which, by the way, was the same moment that, from what I heard you describe, when you met your wife, when she came into your life, was when the void was gone, and you're like, I'm whole. I'm giving now. I'm overflowing with this energy.
Right, and it was a really powerful thing. We eloped in the backyard of one of our Sikh minister friends with him and his wife, and he made a really good point. He said, this is a beautiful combination of, you have you, Christina, my wife, you have you, Grant, and then you have your relationship. So it's like this 3 circles, interdependent of each other. There's me, there's my wife, and then there's us. And when one of us stops taking care of our side of the street, this thing up here, the relationship starts to teeter, we catch it every time. If there's an imbalance, we lovingly call each other on it. And that's a big thing, because without that kind of visual, most relationships are like, this is old, and one leaves. Without ever discussing what the hell is going on, I'm feeling this way because XYZ. Can you help explain that? Right? Something as simple as that, to start the conversation of, we are two growing individuals, forever evolving. And so is our relationship. It's alive. It's not stagnant. And to come with that every day. And this was a really powerful thing in the way of relationships was every single day we are together, my wife and I, and now our daughter, that is a choice. This is not a ball and chain type situation. This is an active choice that we make every single day. And I think it's really, it's easy to forget that because, you know, we take people for granted in our life. They're always going to do this. They're always going to be that. But we forget that you are constantly growing. I'm constantly growing. We shed old beliefs.
People change. Yeah.
People change, and we can all change. And I think over the last few years, at least, what's been really powerful is this idea of not gripping. And when it comes to goals and desires, is I no longer grip, and I really catch myself when I start to grip, and I trust that whatever it is that I want to do, I'm already in my mind, emotionally and thought-wise, have rehearsed it where it's done.
Right.
So I don't have to stretch and reach. And now it doesn't mean I don't do any work. It just means that I trust that whatever I say is going to happen is going to happen. And not moreover, I experience it every single day as if it already has. So I'm now of the vibration that even though it hasn't materialized, right? Already, I've embodied it, if that makes sense, right? It's an interesting, and it's a tough mindset to explain to someone who's like, well, I just want to, just start out meditating, because it's like, okay, it's like, well, let's just start by breathing.
Right.
Develop some willpower.
Baby steps.
Baby steps, right? And because each one of us have so much power and the ability to literally direct, to direct the course of our lives. So it's every day fascinating.
Wow. Absolutely. Yeah. By the way, I just want to acknowledge, Grant, your humility in explaining your journey, in that throughout that you described dragging along the bottom, the alcohol, the drugs, working at the gentleman's club. Yeah. And then working your way up. And in describing that, you mentioned the blessing of Eugene. I think you said your buddy's name was Eugene coming into your life.
Yes. Yeah.
The blessing of your wife coming into your life, the practice of yoga. But there's just an absolute undertone of humility in that, which I think all of our listeners can learn from. Awesome.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that. It's and it's not to say that there wasn't any times where it was the opposite. It's I've just learned, I've reprogrammed my brain to actually say this was necessary, and I'm actually thankful that it happened, because with that depth, there's so much room to go up. And again, like talking like we are now, because we have shadows that we don't necessarily like to talk about. And I'm at a point now where I'm like, you catch me 8 years ago, that might've been a different story. Maybe not really willing to talk about that because it's still so raw. But now it's like, no, there are people that have gone through much more tragic things than that. Yeah. Right. And for them to be like, actually, it's okay. I'm not the only one going through this. Right. And that's a big thing, because we like, as humans, I think, to think that I'm the only one that's experiencing this and that will ever experience it. And it's like, there's so many other people out there that can help and want to help, and that can, are offering help. So totally. I'm so thankful to be doing this, what we're doing now. So
awesome. Hey, likewise, man. Likewise. Yeah. Two-way street. So let's keep rolling along these questions here. So, okay. I feel like with a lot of high achiever types, like you or I included, there's a common theme of, I will be happy when I achieve X.
Oof. Oh man, that's a big one.
X is constantly changing. The bar is continually being raised. Although, achievement can be a great thing. But as Tony Robbins says, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. Now,
beautifully said.
As a high-performing athlete yourself, aligned every action with making the NFL. That was your dream. I'm curious, once you reached that dream, you're in the NFL. How did you feel? Like, were you fulfilled, or was there still that void?
No, so there was a moment when I clearly remember it. Marty Schottenheimer called me and said, hey, listen, on the last preseason game the next morning, he called me and said, listen, we're going to assign you to the practice squad, and you take the day off today. But so I had a full day to really be like, I came in, I signed contracts, I left the practice facility, and I had a whole day to be like, holy, I did it. And I was by myself for most of the day. And I just remember going, wow. So this culmination, 8 years old, all the way up to now, what was I, 21, 22? It's come true. So there wasn't any feeling of void. There was a feeling of excitement. Oh my gosh, I actually am talented enough to do this. There's always in the back of my mind a doubt of like, not the fastest or the quickest, but but this just was proving like James Lofton, the Hall of Fame wide receiver, was our receivers coach. And for him to say like, yes, we want you to be here.
Right.
It was like, oh my God. So yeah, dream come true. San Diego was one of my favorite experiences in the NFL. I felt like people knew that from coaches down, they knew I was a hard worker. They knew I could catch anything. And I was really given a sense of like, hey, you should be playing at this level. Yeah. So it was a beautiful, beautiful feeling. It slowly started to dwindle the more I moved and the more that, hey, you just can't remember those plays, can you? And then it's all the underbelly of insecurity started coming up, and but no void. Just it was full. I got to say, hey, Dad, we did it, and there was always this we, and for him, I can't accomplish anybody else's dreams for them, but in a way, I did. It's interesting. I hadn't talked to my dad in like over 5 years, just recently. Yeah. And just the other day, he called and I said, if I can pick up. So I picked up and we chatted, and it was interesting because he's still very much in that mindset of this is, football. I played in college. Could I have made the NFL? And I'm like, Dad, you have to let this go, because guess what? I did it for you. Right. I did it for you. It's good. All right. Like, I'm your son. You could have if you wanted to, but you didn't. That's fine. You've got to let that go. But ultimately, to some degree, I did it for you. And also the lessons learned from going down that path for myself was irreplaceable. Like I can't, there's nothing I think that could have replaced those for what I know now and the depths that I know now. So
Wow. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Very, very interesting that there was no void. You felt complete, you reached your goal. It was, your dad was there with you. What an awesome culmination of all that effort.
Yeah, it was nice. It was a nice moment for sure.
And so, Grant, a big reason and aim for this podcast is to break the stereotype, so to speak, like specifically among men. That practicing mindfulness is woo-woo. I'm sure you hear this, all the commonly time. As a yoga instructor in your role. Yeah. And are only for hippies. What do you tell men out there who say, meditation and yoga, they're just not for me?
Well, yeah, it's funny, in the yoga studio quite a bit, or outside of it, I'll be like, so what do you do? I teach yoga and meditation. And immediately the majority of responses is, if it's yoga, I'm not flexible enough. If it's meditation, I can't sit still. And I say like, well, that's great. I'm not flexible either. One, two, I couldn't sit still, but I practice. So now what's your excuse? And I attempt to get, because I know if I get them in a class or I have a ability to get them in a meditative state, they realize that it's possible. It's just, again, the beliefs, conditioned beliefs that we tell ourselves every day, like, I can't do this. I am just this way. I'll never be able to do this. This is not for me, without ever questioning, like, well, why are you telling yourself that? Where is this coming from? And so now I'm at a point with the yoga practice itself of saying, like, you say this in your mind, why are you saying that to yourself?
Hmm.
If you can say this, you must be able to say the opposite, which is a much more positive and beneficial thought for yourself. So why do you keep telling yourself, And I tell them, I say, I know what it's like to be in this place of like, I can't do this, I can't do that. I want to, but I just can't. Okay, great. If I give you 10 different variations on how to practice meditation or yoga, one of them is going to work, but you have to want to do it. And so normally the people that will gravitate back towards experiencing that are people that are just slightly open enough to get out of their own way belief-wise. And that's the toughest thing, because people are very strong. They have specific teachers that they like. They have specific ways that they like things being said, without ever realizing, oh, this is a really great lesson here. I may not necessarily dig this person, how they teach or what they say, but can I still detach from that without gripping? That's the biggest thing in the yoga community is, am I doing it right? I only go to this teacher, and this is the only way to do it. And it's like, why so limiting? Let's broaden the conversation. But yeah, I hear it a lot, and I say, continue to go back. If it's what you're saying you want, there are so many, as you know, like there's so much information on and out there about how to be mindful and what does that mean. Okay, well, staying present every single day. What happens to most of us? We stay either constantly in the future about what it is, like you said earlier, when I get here, this is how I will feel. Or we go into the past and say, oh, fuck, I should have done this different. I should have done this better. And then we have a blip of a moment in our day where we're fully present. Like we almost get run over crossing the street. But why does it take something like that to be in the moment? Why does it take this tragic event? So in an attempt to make this as easy as possible, I really just gently just say, well, have you thought of the idea of just coming? Just get yourself in the room. I'll take care of the rest. Usually that's enough for somebody to come back. And then the people that don't want to come back, they don't. It really is when I was ready to jump into yoga and this whole Eastern philosophy, which I had no idea about post NFL. What's that saying? When the teacher will arrive when the student is ready. So whenever that moment is for that person,
whenever they're ready to receive, it will come to them.
They will. Yeah. And so that's what I hear that quite a bit, especially from a male perspective. It can be intimidating. Males don't want to look stupid in front of women, and I teach hot yoga predominantly, so it's in a room with very few clothes on. People have very few clothes on. No one wants to look stupid. And I say, so what if you look stupid? What's even more stupid is you keep telling yourself these things about yourself that aren't true. How crazy is that? Versus the alternative, and I say, if you're worried about looking stupid, just stay in the back. No one can see you. And there's another layer of excuse. So like I said, I just say, just let me get in the room, get yourself in the room. I'll take care of the rest. I got you. Because I promise by the end of it, your mind will have changed. I promise. And 9 out of 10 times it happens.
That's great. And the other thing I think that happens, Grant, is I know a lot of people are like, I tried meditation a couple times. I just can't do it. And I'm like, well, okay, if you try golf 2 times, are you going to be a good golfer?
Yes.
No, probably not.
Probably not. Right. And it's a really good comparison right there, because the golf being such a thing of, you can't muscle it, right? You can't force your way. It's like a great saying a teacher once told me. He's like, you can't make a rose grow faster by pulling on it, right? You've got to let nature just take its course. And sometimes, like the beautiful title of this podcast, slow down, right? Slow down, man. Just allow nature to take its course. And, what I learned early on about, I took a lot of courses and stuff about goal setting and achieving goals and what you need to do every day, regimented about goals. But what I found is I rarely spent any time present. It was always futurizing. 3 things that I'm grateful for, 3 things I'm going to do today to knock out this goal, which are important. But even if those aren't there, I know that my ability to achieve these things has already happened. I'm embodying them. And so I don't need to constantly reach into the future, because if I'm reaching constantly into the future, it's going to stay in the future, if that makes any sense, right? Like, and it's interesting because these things I practiced 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, 20 years old, right? I didn't realize it though. It wasn't like a thing of like, I'm futurizing or embodying this future events right now. It's just like, no. This makes me feel great, right? Like this makes me feel like I'm literally in my mind walking onto NFL fields wearing the NFL helmet. So when it actually happened and I picked up that Chargers helmet for the first time and was like, holy shit, the shield that I've been staring at for so long. And then even on top of it, here's the power of this, you know, if we bleed into the world of manifestation for a moment. Gary Rice, growing up in San Francisco, Gary Rice, the famous wide receiver, being my idol growing up. And I would read books. I would look at books and pictures of him like every single day, mostly all throughout my childhood, my adolescence. I ended up playing right next to him in Denver when I was with the Broncos. He signed, and we're playing. Not only that, we're playing the exact same Z receiver position.
What?
Going head to, he's going to take my job, obviously, because he's Jerry Rice. But
you're okay with that.
I'm okay. In fact, I was a little pissed because I'm like, dude, now I know I'm not going to be here. So I know at 23 or whatever I was, I right now am able to move more quickly than you and do all these things. But you're Jerry Rice. You have 20. You've been playing as long as I've been alive. So, but I mean, so the idea that the consistency of what we do every day really does shift material things in our external world, right? So the internal essentially becomes the external. But we're conditioned to think that I change the external to change how I feel inside, and we're in complete reaction mode all day. And so that's why I try to keep at the forefront of reminding people, whether it's yoga or meditation or just like, how do you stay happy all the time? I practice happiness every day. It's like literally first thing when I wake up, that's the thought. That's the emotions that I experience, because I know, based, you know, on our conversation now, I know what it's like to be at the opposite end of that. And I don't want it anymore. I don't want to do it anymore.
And you told yourself, I must not feel this way anymore, is what you said before, right? It was not an option. It's a... Yes. Well said. I said, this is possible to feel this way. I can totally go in there. And it's not that I'm ignoring. And a lot of people say, well, you have to, when you're anxious or stressed or fearful, like you have to face those things. And let's be clear. I'm not turning away from those. In fact, I'm not only facing them, I'm going right through them, because I'm not distracting myself in the moment. When I have negative feelings, which I do, when I have stressful moments, which I do, when I have anxiety, moments of anxiety, I face them now. I take the time that I need to. It's usually 60 seconds now, where I pause, I get present, I do a specific breathing technique or say a specific affirmation, but I flip it quick. Because I know this can stew, and this will become like thoughts attract like thoughts. Boom, boom, boom. Now I'm depressed. Now I don't know why. Now the whole day's ruined. And now somebody bumps into me, right? It's this chain of events where we wonder, we go like this. We go, somebody, we open our car door into somebody in the parking lot of a grocery store, right? And we wonder how that happened. And you go like, it's not my fault. And you go like, no, well, how did the morning start? Well, you started off by telling yourself you look horrible. You started off by, that led into like, oh God, I hate my job. That led into like, I've got to meet this person later. I'm not looking forward to it. And all of a sudden, boom, these are all chain events that are caused by every single thought and vibration that we put out, right? And reaction, right? Boom, that's it. And when I found that out, I was just like, okay, so if I have control over this, then I should be able to do the opposite, right? If I can think positively, and this is not shutting off the negative, I embrace it. I say, this is the best teacher in the world. Why am I afraid of this? I probably should do this because I'm really, really afraid. Right? So I embraced that mindset and just worked it. And now years later, it's not even a thought anymore. It's a way of life, of moving through the day. And people go, I just don't understand it. The thing to understand is you all know with mindfulness, consistency. 100%. It's like, I can't even, like, if you give it 60 to 90 days, you begin to understand like holy shit, Hmm.
stuff is shifting and I haven't done anything, just
Right.
internal
Right.
work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really powerful thing to look at when touching on mindfulness is starting simple. How am I choosing to think every day?
Totally.
How, right? Yeah.
So I don't want to take up too much more of your time here, Grant, but we'll just, if you do have time, kick out a
Yeah,
couple more questions here.
of course. Let's kick it off.
Man, this next one just piggybacks beautifully off what you just said. And I think, myself, like many men, grew up thinking that, showing especially more of the vulnerable emotions like sadness,
Mm,
are a sign of weakness and something that
yeah.
we should suppress, stuff down.
Yeah.
Especially as an athlete, I'm sure you saw that quite a bit. That's the kind of prevailing mentality. Only recently, personally, doing mindfulness and inner work, I've been able
Yeah.
to get back to expressing those emotions, connecting with my emotions on a daily basis. And man, I've cried more than ever in the last,
Good
6
for
months
you.
to a year. But I want to get your thoughts on this and on the value of honoring our emotions to become more balanced and fulfilled human beings.
This is so important, and the fact that you even just brought that up, your ability to express that you've experienced deep emotions in the last 3 months from it, it's so important, because once we allow that to come in, because I too, much like you, is like you shove down, 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 and one day, amidst all this 10 years of plus years of work was like, well, what if I don't shove it down anymore? What then? What if I forgive? I've done a lot of work on forgiveness, right? And there's a great book. I'm blanking on the name of the author, but it's called Radical Forgiveness. And the exercises in that book that I've done and now I've taught others to do, it's life-changing from the standpoint of this. I don't need to know why I'm forgiving myself. I don't need to know what events I'm forgiving myself for. I don't even need to know how this is happening. But when I choose to start forgiving myself, it's this very simple exercise where I'll place a hand over my heart, and I used to stare right into the mirror at myself, and for 60 seconds, 120 seconds, I just say to myself, I forgive 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 myself. And emotions start to come up. They just start to bubble up, right? And your conscious mind is attempting to be like, well, what's going on? Hold on. We need to analyze why this is. We need to do that. What are you crying? What is going on? And when the tears start to come, the beautiful thing about it is that's the release right there. I don't need to analyze it from an inch of its life. The release is in the tears and the energy that emotion has been holding on. This, in my case, this small 8-year-old boy holding on to this need for attention and love from a father figure that never really came the way that I needed him to, is let go in an instant.
Wow.
And I don't need to hold on to it anymore.
That's powerful.
I don't need to hold on to it. Colin Tipping is his name.
Colin Tipping. Okay. Radical Forgiveness.
Radical Forgiveness. Oh, babe, you're the best. My wife just came in with a hot note.
Yeah, to the rescue.
Babe, you're the best. To the rescue. And that's one of the many exercises that he has that I was like, wow. Because traditionally we think, okay, in this instance, let's say a relationship with father, I've got to spend hours talking about it. I've got to spend hours dissecting it. Why wasn't he here? But in the end, does it matter? It matters to me if I really need some conclusion of it, but in the end, it doesn't. Because in an afternoon or in the morning, I can forgive myself and I can say, I'm letting this go to serve my higher self.
Yeah.
Because it frees up so much space, as I'm sure you've experienced, right? So yeah, the idea of this needing to be this, I don't ever cry thing, I dropped that a long time ago. And I think it's important for men, everyone, in this case, men in particular, to really embrace, like, it's okay. Like, I love it when there's a guy that's really like stiff and you can tell he's kind of like, yeah, I want to give you a hug, but I'm not sure what to do. And I'm just I go right in. I go, come on, like, get in here, dude. Let's go. Like, listen up.
Bring it in.
Bring it in. Come on for the love, the real love, because it's important, right? It's important to keep that open, and people can feel that, right? People surrounding you can feel that.
Totally.
They know when you're closed off, open, and I just constantly just want to be vibrating and pulsing out into the world this love and this goodness that people can also be like, well, hey, damn it, I can do that too.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's magnetic, right?
Yes,
it's,
exactly.
Contagious, I would say.
Yeah. So like you and I talking, right? We're just continually raising the level of the vibration of, can this be the everyday? Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
There's no reason it can't be.
No reason other than my own beliefs of like, well, only a little bit, only little doses of it. Right.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then that's the case. But I would say, like I've said, I've attempted to flip the what's considered to be normal. You can only feel this way, like we mentioned earlier, when this happens, or if I achieve this occupation, or if I get this car, or if I whatever that golden ticket is. What if it was you are the golden ticket? Like
right.
You are it right now.
Right now.
Right now. And the conscious mind goes, that's not, you don't understand, Grant. What you're talking about doesn't exist with the eyes that I'm looking through. And then you hit it with the scientific fact of our eyes only see like 0.01% of what's actually there.
Yeah.
Right? Like the limited scope of what our eyes can actually see is so mind-blowing. And this is, again, a science thing where it's like, well, what is there in between me, in the space between me and you? What is that?
Right.
And if it's energy, can I manipulate it? If there were lines moving through this whole, like the matrix, could I, with my mind and my emotions and thoughts, adjust? And now that gets pretty far out there, but I mean, when we're talking about energetically, and thoughts are real forces, it makes sense. I am what I think. There's that great book. There's a reason, As Man Thinketh, by you know the book, As Man Thinketh. Why is written in 1913, and it's still a classic.
Right.
Because he goes, listen, ultimately, bottom line, you are your thoughts. Let's get clear. So if you are your thoughts, if that holds true, what are we thinking every day? And moreover, are you present with your thoughts every day? And moreover, are you directing them, or are they being directed by external forces? And it's a really powerful thing, and it's a tiny book. It's a short book, and I remember when my family and I were living in New York for about a year, which was brutal. It was, New York is a
brutal.
Oh yeah,
really?
Well, we had just moved from Los Angeles to Toronto because my wife's Canadian, and we were jumped down to New York, and I was teaching yoga there in the city. You know, I'm from California, so it's a bit more fast paced.
Yeah. Everyone's in a rush. Yeah.
Everyone's in a rush. No one's here. You're standing like this to someone, but there's no connection.
Right. Yeah.
And so I would take that book by James Allen, As Man Thinketh, and I put it in my headphones, and I must have listened to it hundreds of times. So it's somewhere along the way, it embedded itself in there because I listened to it so much. And it started to take effect because I was like, oh, these are really interesting concepts. When did you write this? 1913. Oh, okay. Do you know what I mean? Like, like it's like the Think and Grow Rich, why that is still today one of the top selling books for a reason. The truths in there are actual truths. And our hangups around money and what it means and stuff, that's a whole other topic. But every area in our lives can be streamlined if we allow it to be, right? And it starts with forgiveness. It starts with mindfulness. It starts with untangling all of the conditions that we believe like, this is just who I am. No, it's not. You're so much more.
Right.
So,
oh man.
Yeah, it's I think that answered the question.
There was so much there. That was amazing.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And
broke out. I was like, I hope that answered the question.
And you helped to grow our listeners' bookshelf a little bit with those 2 book recommendations: Radical Forgiveness, by Colin Tipping.
Yeah, Tipping. Yeah, it's a great one.
the classic from 1913, As Men Thinketh. So a
Yes,
couple of
James
gems
Allen.
right there.
Yeah,
James Allen, right.
there we go.
So Grant, one final question for you before we wrap
Yeah,
up here. This
let's do
one's
it.
hard hitting. You
Okay.
can answer it in as little or as many words as you'd like, but if you could tell the version of yourself who is at the lowest point of your life. So for you, judging by your journey that you described to us, was probably when you're in Vegas, dragging
Yeah.
along the bottom, as you said. And you could tell that
Oh,
version of Grant one thing. What would you tell him?
wow. Just hearing you even just say that, immediately what comes to mind is the image, or 'cause I remember it so vividly, of just being in the alleyways on a break, on a smoking break, which I used to take like 20 of them just to get outside of the
Right, right.
dark, windowless establishment that is the Spearmint Rhino. Um, um, on a total side note, it was so dark in there
Yeah.
that there were pockets of darkness. Now this is like symbolic on so many levels, but there were pockets of darkness that when I used to go back in from breaks,
Yeah.
you could tuck yourself away into, like, say, a corner somewhere
Right.
that was so dark. People that had even been in there for 4 hours, 6 hours, they couldn't see you.
What?
They would literally bump into you, or you'd have to just kind of like
Wow.
to stay out of their way. But they would never
what a
know you're there.
fitting visual for rock bottom.
Oh, and it really, I used to just tuck in. That was my routine. I would come in from the alleyway. I'd duck into one of those pockets of darkness and just sit there. I'd say, like, I wonder how long I can sit here.
Right.
And it would be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, until somebody would be like, "Where's Grant?"
Right. And how symbolic of you going off the map, like you said, after football, right? You're hiding.
Yeah. Yeah. So I imagine that being the scenario of being out in that alleyway and coming up. I used to wish, like, I would get a phone call out there from, like, somebody saying, "Hey, we've got this great job for you," or something. And I imagine pulling up in, the situation I'm in now, the circumstances I'm in now, and telling and sitting down and not even telling him about all the stuff, not even telling him about all how it turns out.
Right.
And just asking him, and just sitting there, just how are you doing? And to see if that version of myself would actually be honest, or try to cover up with, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm thinking about going back into the NFL. I'm thinking about doing this. I'm thinking about doing that. I've got a plan." Real just egoistic version of, like, "Don't worry, I'm fine." But then mostly just giving the dude a hug. That's really all he needed, was just a big hug and a big cry, like really just a big cry. Like, I get emotional thinking about it now, because that was really what was needed in that moment. I remember just sitting there going, like, wanting to do that in the moment, but not knowing if anyone was going to come out who would see me. Nobody really understood my journey because they didn't know what I had done. They just thought I was some guy. And that was even harder, because people were just like, "You're some dude. You haven't accomplished anything in your life. You're a barback at Spearmint Rhino." Not to knock anybody that's doing that work right now, because that's not the point. The point was the mindset around it. I believed I was less than because I was doing something I didn't think I should be doing. So it would just be, there would be no words. In fact, I would pick him up and I'd just give him a hug, and I'd give him, a big hard hit on the back, and I'd just say, "Everything's going to be all right." And I get emotional thinking about it now, because it's something that my dad used to tell me when I was younger, and then I in turn had to do for him when he was struggling through some alcoholism issues and found himself in the hospital. I had to repeat those words for him as he did when I was a child. So it would be an interesting thing. But, like, if I get emotional again, like I say, picturing my, talking and just saying everything's gonna be okay, and just to let him just release, just let go of needing to hold up anything, to need to know that it's okay, that you don't know you're going to be okay, and that this is going to pass. and you're going to enter into some lightness. You just got to go through a bit more shit.
I love that. Sometimes a hug can be more powerful than any
No
words,
words.
right?
Yeah.
And just restoring that faith that you mentioned got you into football and then has got you back to where you are today.
Yeah. So that's a powerful visualization to think about. But I think in many ways I have done that, just not on that kind of level. And I think we all do at a certain point when we decide to flip that switch of, I'm not going to be on autopilot anymore. I'm going to actually daily take charge of thoughts, emotions, actions. Wow. Thoughts, emotions, actions. Boom. Thoughts, emotion. Repeat. Yeah. So yeah, I hope that was that answered. But
man, awesome. So before we break here, Grant, where can they're dying to know, where can our listeners go to follow you, connect with you? I know you do live meditations. So just give any idea about that.
I would say on Instagram right now is probably the best place. It's Grant Mattos is the username. In the next week or so, I'm going to actually be launching a website with a lot of mindfulness stuff on it. Everything from blogs, vlogs to courses, and all in the world of what we're talking about here: mindfulness, reprogramming the subconscious, all that work. And I'll announce that on Instagram, but that's the main platform and right now what's great is I get a chance to interact and do these live meditations, these live talks right there on the platform. So you don't need to know anything other than just when that little live button comes up, you just click right on it. And I announce what's coming up most every day. So it's usually like 6 days a week, something is going on definitely in the morning and in the evening, as far as meditation and reprogramming up here goes. So I would say Instagram is the best way. First and last name, Grant Mattos. But
awesome.
Yeah.
So Instagram at Grant Mattos. Grant, thank you so much, my man. You provided so much knowledge and value to our listeners and to me personally. I'm very grateful, brother. And as we've chatted about, I think you totally align with the aim of this podcast, which is
good.
Get to the men who are a little skeptical about practicing mindfulness or about, introducing that consistency and that practice into their lives. I feel like you're just getting started and skimming the surface of, getting yourself out there and getting that energy and that vibration that I'm seeing right now out there. Really excited to see what the future holds, man. So thank you again.
Well, I thank you, and I'm looking forward to getting to know more about your story and your life, and hopefully flipping this at some point so I can be asking you about your journey and your experiences.
Awesome.
Because, like I said, it's two-way street, right? We learn from each other.
Totally.
So I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Likewise, man.